The morning sun rose over New Eden Colony, painting the sky in soft colors that made the children laugh with joy. 8-year-old Maya Chen ran through the gardens with her friends, their voices echoing across the peaceful settlement. Her father, Marcus, watched from their home's window, a gentle smile on his face. Life was good here on the rim of human space. For 3,000 years, humanity had known only peace. The old wars were just stories in history books now. Children grew up safe and happy on hundreds of worlds, never knowing fear or violence. Earth itself had become a paradise of art and learning, where people spent their lives creating beautiful things and exploring the mysteries of the universe. Marcus worked as a teacher in the colony school. He taught children about the stars, about other alien races, and about humanity's long tradition of helping others. The children always asked the same question: why don't we have soldiers like other species? Marcus would smile and explain that humans had learned long ago that peace was better than war. Across the galaxy, other alien races knew humans as the gentle ones. When there were disputes between species, they called humans to help solve the problems. When planets suffered disasters, human ships arrived first with food and medicine. The galaxy had grown used to this. Humans were soft, they said. Humans were weak. But humans were also kind, so everyone left them alone. On this particular morning, Maya and her friends were playing a game where they pretended to be explorers discovering new worlds. They laughed as they climbed the small hills around the colony, pointing at imaginary alien creatures and making up stories about friendly aliens who wanted to trade pretty stones. "Look!" Maya called out, pointing at the sky. "A real spaceship!" The other children looked up. Indeed, there was a ship coming down through the clouds. But something was wrong. The ship was not the usual human design with smooth curves and bright colors. This ship was dark and angular with sharp edges that looked dangerous. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the ship land near the colony center. He had seen pictures of ships like this in the history files. This was a Zephyrian vessel. The Zephyrians were one of the galaxy's most aggressive species, ruling over 3,000 star systems with iron discipline. But they had never bothered human colonies before. More ships appeared in the sky. Dozens of them. They landed all around the colony, and armed soldiers poured out. The Zephyrians were tall with gray skin and 4 arms. Their armor was black and covered in spikes. They carried weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. The colonists gathered in the main square, confused and frightened. They had never seen soldiers before, not real ones. The colony's administrator, Sarah Mills, stepped forward with her hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. "Welcome to New Eden," she said in the common galactic language. "How can we help you?" The Zephyrian commander was bigger than the others, with scars covering his face. He looked at the humans with cold yellow eyes. "I am War Leader Gex, by order of Emperor Vexthul. All human offspring between 5 and 15 cycles will be collected for service to the hegemony." Sarah's face went pale. "I don't understand. Our children? What do you mean?" "Your young will be trained as warriors for the Zephyrian military. They will learn proper discipline and strength. This is not a request." Marcus felt his world stop spinning. He looked around frantically for Maya, spotting her hiding behind the fountain with her friends. Their eyes were wide with fear, even though they didn't understand what was happening. "You can't take our children," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "We are a peaceful people. We have treaties with the Galactic Council." Gex laughed, a harsh sound like metal grinding. "Your treaties mean nothing. You are weak. Your children will be made strong." What happened next would be remembered by every human alive as the moment their long peace died. Zephyrian soldiers moved through the colony with practiced efficiency. They used scanning devices to identify children in the right age range. Parents screamed and begged, but the aliens simply pushed them aside. The humans had no weapons, no defenses, no way to fight back. Marcus ran toward Maya, but a Zephyrian soldier blocked his path. The alien's 4 arms moved faster than Marcus could follow, and suddenly he was on the ground, gasping for breath. Through tears of pain and rage, he watched as they took his little girl. Maya called out for him as the soldiers carried her away. "Daddy! Help me! Daddy!" But Marcus couldn't help. None of the humans could help. They could only watch as their children were loaded onto the dark ships like cargo. The same scene played out on 11 other human colonies that day. 50,000 children were taken in a coordinated attack that lasted only 6 hours. When the Zephyrian ships lifted off and disappeared into space, they left behind broken communities and devastated parents. News of the attack spread quickly through human space. On Earth, the Terran Assembly held emergency sessions. Diplomats contacted the Galactic Council demanding action. But the response was always the same. This was an internal matter of the Zephyrian hegemony. The Council could not interfere. Marcus Chen sat in his empty house, staring at Maya's toys scattered on the floor. His neighbors moved like ghosts through the colony, all of them in shock. The children's laughter no longer echoed through the gardens. The playground stood silent and empty. For 3,000 years, humanity had chosen peace over war, gentleness over violence, creation over destruction. They had believed that these choices made them better than their ancestors who had fought in the old wars. They had believed that peace was always the answer. As night fell over New Eden, Marcus Chen made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow, he would contact Earth. Tomorrow, he would ask questions that hadn't been asked for 3 millennia. Tomorrow, he would learn what his species had forgotten about war. The age of human peace was over. 3 weeks after the children were taken, the Zephyrian Emperor himself appeared on screens across human space. Vex Thul was massive even for his species, with golden armor that gleamed like a sun. His 4 arms moved as he spoke, each gesture sharp and commanding. "Humans of the galaxy," he said, his voice deep and threatening. "Your offspring are now property of the Zephyrian hegemony. They will be raised as proper warriors, not the weak creatures you would make them. Their soft human memories will be removed. They will know only strength and discipline." Marcus Chen watched the broadcast from the assembly hall in New Eden Colony. Around him, other parents wept openly. Some screamed at the screen. Others simply stared in shock. When the Emperor finished speaking, the hall fell silent, except for the sound of crying. "We have to do something," whispered Sarah Mills. As colony administrator, she had been trying to contact Earth for weeks, but the responses were always the same. The Terran Assembly was working on diplomatic solutions. They urged patience. They promised the children would be returned through peaceful negotiations. But Marcus had stopped believing in peaceful solutions. Each night, he lay awake thinking about Maya's frightened face as the aliens carried her away. Each day, he felt something growing inside him that he had never experienced before. It was dark and angry and hungry for action. On Earth, the Terran Assembly met in emergency session after emergency session. The Great Hall, where humanity's leaders gathered, had not seen such tension in centuries. Representatives from every human world demanded action, but they had no experience with this kind of crisis. "We must appeal to the Galactic Council again," said Assembly Leader Chen Wei. "Surely they will see reason." "The Council has refused to help 12 times, replied Representative Torres from Mars. "They say this is an internal Zephyrian matter." "Then we negotiate directly with the Zephyrians," suggested another member. "With what leverage?" Torres shot back. "We have nothing they want, except more children to steal." Deep beneath the assembly building, in the restricted archives that few people knew existed, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked alone. As head archivist, she had access to files that had been sealed for 3,000 years, files that contained humanity's darkest secrets. Elena had been researching continuously since the attack. She knew there had to be something in the old records, something that could help. The files she found made her hands shake as she read them. Humanity had not always been peaceful. Before the Great Reconciliation of 1024 CE, humans had been warriors. Not just warriors, they had been the most feared military force in the galaxy. The records showed battles where human fleets had destroyed entire enemy civilizations. They told of weapons so terrible that other species had begged humanity to stop fighting. "No wonder we chose peace," Elena whispered to herself as she read about the extinction wars. Humanity had nearly wiped out 3 alien species before finally realizing what they had become. The horror of their own capacity for destruction had led to the Great Reconciliation, where humanity had sworn off war forever. But the files revealed something else. The military technology had not been destroyed. It had been hidden, buried in sealed facilities across human space. Waiting. Elena's hands trembled as she opened the deepest files. Weapon designs that could crack planets. Ship blueprints for vessels faster and more deadly than anything the current galaxy had ever seen. Battle strategies that had crushed every enemy humanity had faced. She thought about the children suffering in Zephyrian camps and made a decision. Elena copied the files to a secure drive and left the archives. It was time for humanity to remember what it had chosen to forget. Meanwhile, on the colony worlds, something strange was happening to the parents of the stolen children. Marcus Chen noticed it first when he looked in the mirror and saw his own eyes. They were different now, colder, more focused. The gentle teacher was disappearing, replaced by something harder. Other parents reported the same changes. They moved differently, thought differently. Their bodies seemed to remember things their minds had never learned. Simple tasks became opportunities to practice efficiency. Peaceful conversations turned into tactical discussions. Dr. Sarah Kim, the colony's medical officer, ran tests on the affected parents. What she found amazed her. Their brain scans showed new neural pathways forming, patterns that matched genetic memories buried deep in human DNA. It was as if their bodies were remembering how to be soldiers. "It's incredible," Dr. Kim told Marcus during his examination. "Your nervous system is adapting. Your reflexes are faster. You're thinking more strategic. It's like you're becoming someone else." "Maybe I'm becoming who I was supposed to be," Marcus replied. The words surprised him. He had been a peaceful man his entire life, but now peace felt like a luxury he could no longer afford. When Elena's files reached the colonies, everything changed. The parents gathered in secret meetings, studying the old military records with hungry eyes. They learned about weapons and tactics, about strategy and warfare. The knowledge felt natural, as if they were simply remembering skills they had temporarily forgotten. Marcus found himself leading these meetings without knowing why. Other parents looked to him for guidance, and he discovered he had answers. Plans formed in his mind, complex operations involving multiple strike teams and coordinated attacks. Where were these ideas coming from? "We can't wait for the assembly to save our children," Marcus told the group one night. "We have to be ready to save them ourselves." "Ready how?" asked Sarah Mills. Marcus smiled. But it wasn't the gentle smile of a teacher anymore. It was the smile of a predator. "By becoming what we used to be." The news from other colonies was similar. Parents were organizing. They were training. They were preparing for something that humanity had not done in 3 millennia. War. On Earth, the assembly continued to debate. They sent more diplomatic messages that were ignored. They offered trade deals and cultural exchanges in return for the children. The Zephyrians laughed at every offer. Finally, a group of assembly members led by Representative Torres demanded access to the sealed military archives. When they saw what Elena had discovered, the debates stopped. The truth was clear. Diplomacy had failed. If they wanted their children back, humanity would have to fight for them. The vote was scheduled for the next day. For the first time in 3,000 years, humanity would decide whether to go to war. Marcus Chen stood under the stars of New Eden, feeling the change in himself growing stronger. Somewhere out there, Maya was suffering in a Zephyrian training camp. Somewhere out there, 50,000 human children were being turned into enemy soldiers. Tomorrow, humanity would choose its path. But for Marcus, the choice had already been made. The gentle teacher was gone. In his place stood something the galaxy had not seen for 3 millennia, a human ready for war. The vote happened at dawn on Earth. Assembly leader Chen Wei stood before the greatest gathering of human representatives in history. Every world, every colony, every station had sent someone to witness this moment. The question was simple. Would humanity activate the forgotten protocols? All in favor of unsealing humanity's military heritage, Chen Wei announced, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. 847 hands rose into the air. Only one remained down, Representative Davis from the peaceful world of harmony, tears streaming down his face as he realized what they were about to become. The vote was final. For the first time in 3,000 years, humanity chose war. Within hours, things that had slept beneath Earth's crust began to wake up. Deep underground, massive machines hummed to life. The hidden shipyards that had been sealed since the Great Reconciliation opened their ancient doors. Construction robots that had waited 3 millennia for orders began to move. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked alongside teams of engineers and scientists to unlock the old technologies. The files she had discovered were like treasure maps leading to humanity's buried military might. Every day brought new discoveries, weapon designs that made modern alien technology look like toys, ship blueprints that promised speed and firepower beyond anything the current galaxy knew. "Look at this," Elena said to her team, pointing at a holographic display. "The plans for a Wraith-class destroyer. It can travel twice as fast as the best Zephyrian ship and strike from complete invisibility." "How many can we build?" asked Chief Engineer Morrison. "According to these files, the Earth Foundries alone can produce 50 per month once fully active." Morrison whistled softly. "The Zephyrians won't know what hit them." But ships were only part of the equation. Humanity needed soldiers, and they were getting volunteers faster than anyone had expected. The news about activating military protocols had spread across human space, and the response was immediate. Millions of people, most of them parents, requested military service within the first day. Marcus Chen was among the first to arrive at the new training facility on Mars. The red planet had been chosen because its empty spaces could hold the massive bases humanity was building. When Marcus stepped off the transport, he saw thousands of other people like him, ordinary citizens who had become something else. Admiral Sarah Torres greeted the first group of volunteers. She had been a colonial administrator just months ago, but something in her bearing had changed. She moved like a soldier now, spoke like a commander. The transformation was happening to all of them. "You are here because your children were taken," Torres said to the assembled crowd. "You are here because diplomacy failed. You are here because sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it." The training was unlike anything in human memory, but it felt natural, as if their bodies remembered these movements from some ancestral dream. Marcus learned to fight with weapons and without them. He studied tactics and strategy that seemed familiar despite being completely new to him. Other trainees made the same discovery. They were good at this, frighteningly good. Dr. Kim, who had studied the parents' changing biology on New Eden, now worked with the military medical team. Her findings amazed everyone. The volunteers' bodies were adapting at an incredible rate. Their reflexes became faster, their thinking sharper, their physical abilities enhanced. It was as if humanity's genetic code contained sleeping instructions for war. "We're not just training soldiers," Dr. Kim reported to Admiral Torres. "We're awakening something that was always there. These people are becoming what humans were designed to be." The first ships rolled out of the Earth foundries 6 weeks after the vote. They were beautiful in a terrible way, sleek black vessels that seemed to absorb light. The Wraith destroyers lived up to their name, nearly invisible to most scanning systems. The larger Reaper battleships carried weapons that could level mountains. But the real surprise was how well humans took to space combat. The first test flights revealed abilities that no one had expected. Human pilots flew with an intuitive understanding of three-dimensional warfare. They moved their ships like extensions of their own bodies, performing maneuvers that alien instructors said were impossible. Marcus earned his place as a squad leader during training. He found that he could see patterns in combat that others missed, predict enemy movements, coordinate complex attacks across multiple units. When Admiral Torres asked him where he had learned these skills, he could only shrug. "It feels like remembering rather than learning," he said. 3 months after the vote, humanity was ready for its first real test. Zephyrian raiders had been attacking human trade ships, confident that the peaceful species would never fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The attack came at the Kepler Junction, a major trade route used by ships from dozens of species. A Zephyrian battle group of 12 ships surrounded a human merchant convoy, demanding surrender. The merchant captains sent out distress calls, but help seemed far away. Then space twisted, and 6 human Wraith destroyers appeared from nowhere. Commander Lisa Park led the human squadron. 3 months ago, she had been a librarian on Europa. Now she was the nightmare that Zephyrian mothers would tell their children about. Her ships moved like ghosts, striking from impossible angles and disappearing before return fire could find them. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, all 12 Zephyrian ships were destroyed. No human vessels were even scratched. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. Peaceful humanity had just annihilated an entire Zephyrian battle group without taking a single casualty. The same species that had spent 3 millennia helping others solve disputes had just demonstrated a capacity for warfare that terrified everyone who saw the recordings. Emperor Vexthul himself watched the battle footage from his throne world. His advisors suggested negotiating the return of the human children, but the Emperor refused. He had ruled through strength for 2 centuries. He would not show weakness now, no matter how surprising this human response had been. "Increase security around the training camps," he ordered, "and prepare our main battle fleets. If the humans want war, we will give them more war than they can handle." But in the depths of space, human fleets were already moving. The first wave was just the beginning. Admiral Torres had divided humanity's forces into dozens of strike groups, each one capable of appearing anywhere in Zephyrian space without warning. They carried new weapons, flew ships designed for victory, and were led by soldiers who fought with the accumulated fury of 50,000 stolen children. Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the destroyer Vengeance, watching the stars wheel past as they headed for their first major target. His daughter was out there somewhere, trapped in an enemy camp, probably scared and alone. The thought should have made him sad. Instead, it made him smile, the cold smile of a predator closing in on prey. The Zephyrians had wanted to make human children into warriors. They were about to discover what human warriors were truly capable of when they had something worth fighting for. The attack on Zephyrian Station 7 happened at exactly midnight station time. The Zephyrians had chosen the remote outpost as a training facility because it was deep in their territory, far from any possible rescue attempt. They thought their stolen human children would be safe there. They were wrong. Marcus Chen's team materialized from the darkness like vengeful spirits. The new human ships could travel through space in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics, appearing and disappearing without warning. Their stealth technology was so advanced that the station's sensors never detected the approaching fleet. "Remember," Marcus whispered into his communicator as his boarding team prepared to assault the station. "Zephyrian soldiers are targets. Human children are to be protected at all costs. No exceptions." The attack was swift and precise. Human soldiers moved through the station corridors with deadly efficiency, their weapons cutting through Zephyrian defenders like light through darkness. But when they reached the children's quarters, Marcus felt his heart break. The young prisoners wore Zephyrian military uniforms. Their heads had been shaved. Many looked at the human rescuers with confusion and fear, their memories clouded by months of alien conditioning. Some even tried to defend their captors, believing the lies they had been told about their human families abandoning them. "It's okay," Marcus said gently as he knelt beside a frightened boy who couldn't have been more than 6. "We're here to take you home." But he wondered if home would ever feel the same to these children again. Similar rescue operations were happening across Zephyrian space. Human strike teams hit training camps, research facilities, and military bases with surgical precision. Each attack was perfectly planned, executed flawlessly, and completed before Zephyrian reinforcements could arrive. The galaxy watched in amazement and terror as peaceful humanity transformed into the most effective military force anyone had seen in centuries. Human tactics were unpredictable, their technology was superior, and their motivation was absolute. They fought with the fury of parents seeking their stolen children, and that fury made them unstoppable. Admiral Torres commanded the campaign from her flagship, the newly built battleship Retribution. The massive vessel was a work of art and destruction, carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. But Torres preferred subtlety to brute force. Why destroy an enemy world when you could terrify them into surrender? "Psychological warfare," she explained to her officers during a strategy meeting. "The Zephyrians rule through fear. We show them what real fear looks like." The humans began broadcasting messages across Zephyrian space. Not threats or demands, but simple statements of fact. Human ships had been here, human soldiers had struck there. Zephyrian bases that had existed for centuries were simply gone, eliminated so completely that no trace remained. The effect on Zephyrian morale was devastating. Their military had never faced an enemy like this. Human fleets appeared without warning, struck with impossible precision, and vanished before retaliation was possible. Worse, the humans seemed to know everything about Zephyrian military operations, as if they could read their enemies' minds. In truth, human intelligence gathering was just superior. 3,000 years of peaceful contact with other species had given humanity detailed knowledge of alien psychology and tactics. Now that knowledge was being weaponized with terrifying effectiveness. Emperor Vexthul received reports of defeat after defeat from his generals. Entire star systems were requesting protection that he could not provide. His own advisors whispered that perhaps negotiation might be wise. "We are the Zephyrian hegemony!" the Emperor roared during an emergency council session. "We do not negotiate with inferior species." But privately, Vexthul was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. The gentle humans he had dismissed as weak were proving to be the most dangerous enemy his empire had ever faced. Their ships were faster, their weapons more deadly, their soldiers more skilled. Worst of all, they seemed to be getting stronger with each battle. The human advance continued relentlessly. Star system after star system fell to the advancing fleets. Not through destruction. Humans rarely needed to kill civilian populations. Instead, they would eliminate the military forces, rescue any human children they found, and then simply leave. The message was clear. This war was about the children, nothing more. But that restraint only made the humans more terrifying to their enemies. A force that could destroy you but chose mercy was far more frightening than simple brutality. Marcus Chen had become one of the most effective strike team leaders in the human military. His success rate for rescuing children was perfect. Every operation he led brought kids home safely. But each rescue also showed him how much damage the Zephyrians had done to young minds. On a raid against a facility on the planet Morthek, Marcus found his own daughter. Maya was 10 years old now, taller and thinner than when she had been taken. She wore a Zephyrian cadet uniform and carried herself like a soldier. When Marcus called her name, she looked at him with cold, empty eyes. "I don't know you," she said in accented Zephyrian. "My commanders told me that humans are weak creatures who abandon their children." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. This was his little girl, the child who had laughed in the gardens of New Eden, who had played with toy spaceships and dreamed of exploring the stars. Now she looked at him like he was the enemy. "I'm your father," he whispered. "Your name is Maya Chen. You liked strawberry ice cream and picture books about friendly aliens." For just a moment, something flickered in Maya's eyes. Confusion, recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold discipline the Zephyrians had beaten into her. It took weeks of gentle therapy before Maya began to remember who she had been before. Even then, the cheerful little girl was gone forever, replaced by someone harder and sadder. The same story played out with thousands of other rescued children. They could be healed, but they could never be unchanged. The human military response to these discoveries was swift and terrible. The rescue operations became punishment raids. Zephyrian facilities weren't just emptied of human children. They were obliterated so completely that nothing remained but cooling metal and empty space. Other galactic powers watched the conflict with growing alarm. The Altarian Republic, humanity's longtime allies, sent diplomatic messages urging restraint. The response from Admiral Torres was polite but final. "Our children were taken. We will have them back. Everything else is negotiable." The Crystalline Confederacy, which had been considering an alliance with the Zephyrians, immediately changed their position. The idea of facing human fleets in battle was too terrifying to consider. Even the ancient Vorthon Empire, which had ruled space lanes for 10,000 years, began positioning their fleets defensively. They had no quarrel with humanity, but they wanted to make sure the humans knew where Vorthon territory began and ended. Meanwhile, the human advance continued. Strike teams penetrated deeper into Zephyrian space, hitting targets that should have been unreachable. Human intelligence networks mapped every Zephyrian facility, identified every military leader, tracked every ship movement. Emperor Vexthul found himself trapped in his own palace, surrounded by bodyguards who could no longer guarantee his safety. Human assassins had eliminated 3 of his top generals in their own bedrooms. Human saboteurs had destroyed shipyards that were supposed to be impregnable. Human psychological warfare specialists had turned half his military against the other half by spreading rumors and disinformation. "How do we fight an enemy that knows everything about us but remains a mystery to us?" asked General Horth, one of the few Zephyrian commanders who had survived repeated encounters with human forces. The Emperor had no answer. In taking human children, he had awakened something that should have remained sleeping. Now that force was coming for him, and there seemed to be no way to stop it. Deep in space, human fleets gathered for the final assault. The target was Zeph-Hara itself, the hegemony's capital world, where Emperor Vexithul ruled from his golden throne. Intelligence reports indicated that the last group of human children was being held there as the Emperor's final bargaining chip. Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the distant glow of the enemy capital. Somewhere down there, other children waited for rescue. Somewhere down there, the monster who had ordered their kidnapping sat on his throne, probably thinking he was safe. The Emperor was about to learn the final lesson about humanity. When their children are threatened, humans become something beyond mercy, beyond negotiation, beyond fear. They become justice itself. The assault on Zevhara began at dawn, but not with explosions or weapons fire. Instead, it began with silence. Every communication system on the planet went dead. Every military satellite stopped responding. Every defense grid shut down without explanation. The Zephyrian capital, which had commanded 3,000 star systems for centuries, was suddenly blind and deaf. Emperor Vex Thul sat on his golden throne in the highest tower of his palace, watching human ships appear in the sky above his world. There were hundreds of them, sleek black vessels that seemed to absorb the light of Zevhara's twin suns. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of predatory fish closing in on their prey. How did they get past our defenses? The Emperor demanded of his remaining generals. General Horth, his face pale with fear, checked his instruments again. "Sire, our defenses are still there. They just aren't working anymore. It's like the humans have turned off our entire military." In the palace depths, the last 3,000 human children huddled in reinforced chambers. They had been moved here as the Emperor's final insurance policy. He believed that no attack would come if it might hurt human young. He was about to discover how wrong he was. Admiral Torres commanded the assault from her flagship. The plan she had developed was complex beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. A coordinated strike that would eliminate every Zephyrian threat while keeping every human child safe. It required precise timing, perfect communication, and absolute trust between thousands of human soldiers. "All teams report ready," came the voice of Marcus Chen through the communication system. He was leading the ground assault personally, despite Torres's concerns about his emotional involvement. "Remember," Torres broadcast to all units, "every human child comes home today. No exceptions. No acceptable losses. Failure is not an option." The attack began with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. Not bombs or lasers, but something far more sophisticated. Targeted neural disruptors that could render specific individuals unconscious without harming anyone nearby. The technology had been developed specifically for this mission, designed to incapacitate Zephyrian guards while leaving human children unharmed. Invisible beams swept through the palace, and Zephyrian soldiers collapsed where they stood. The Emperor watched in horror as his elite bodyguards simply fell asleep around his throne. Then the doors to his chamber opened, and a figure in black armor walked in. Marcus Chen removed his helmet and looked at the alien who had destroyed his daughter's childhood. The Emperor was larger than any human, with 4 arms and skin like gray metal, but something in Marcus's eyes made him shrink back into his throne. "Where are the children?" Marcus asked quietly. "You cannot have them," Vex Thul replied, trying to sound commanding despite his fear. "They are the future soldiers of my empire. I will not." Marcus moved faster than the Emperor's eyes could follow. One moment he was standing by the door, the next his hand was around Vex Thul's throat. The alien's 4 arms struggled against Marcus's grip, but somehow the human was stronger. "Where are the children?" The Emperor's eyes bulged as he realized that the human would kill him without hesitation. "Sub-level 12, he gasped. "The secure chambers. But the locks are biometric. Only I can open them." Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you're going to help us." 20 minutes later, the last human children were free. They emerged from the palace chambers confused and frightened, many of them barely recognizing their own species after months or years of alien conditioning. Human medics and counselors were waiting to help them, to begin the long process of healing minds that had been deliberately broken. Maya Chen was among the children rescued from the palace. She looked at her father with eyes that were slowly remembering how to trust. The cold Zephyrian discipline was still there, but underneath it, Marcus could see glimpses of the little girl who had played in the gardens of New Eden. "Is it really over?" she asked in a small voice. Marcus knelt beside his daughter and held her gently. "Yes, it's over. We're going home." With the Emperor captured and his capital occupied, the Zephyrian hegemony collapsed within days. 3,000 star systems that had been held together by fear and military force suddenly found themselves free. Some celebrated, others descended into chaos, but none of them challenged the human fleets that now moved freely through what had once been enemy space. The galactic response to humanity's victory was immediate and dramatic. Species that had ignored human diplomatic requests for centuries suddenly wanted to discuss new treaties. Trade agreements that had been stalled for decades were fast-tracked through alien governments. The Universal Council, which had refused to help rescue the human children, now sent official delegations to Earth requesting formal meetings. Admiral Torres received ambassadors from 50 different worlds in the first week after the war ended. They all wanted the same thing: assurance that humanity would not turn its terrifying military capabilities against them. "We are not conquerors," Torres told the assembled diplomats at a conference on Earth. "We did not fight this war for territory or resources. We fought it for our children. That is the only thing that will make us fight again." This statement became known as the Guardian Doctrine, and it changed everything about how the galaxy viewed humanity. Other species learned to respect the new human boundaries, to honor human treaties, and to remember that the peaceful traders and healers were also parents who would go to any length to protect their young. The Zephyrian Empire was divided among its former subjects, with human oversight to ensure that the transition was peaceful. Emperor Vexthul was tried by a galactic court for crimes against sentient species. He spent his remaining years in a prison cell, probably wondering how stealing children from peaceful humans had led to the destruction of everything he had built. Marcus Chen retired from military service after the war ended. He returned to New Eden Colony with Maya and the other rescued children, but life there would never be the same. The gardens still bloomed, the sun still rose in soft colors, but innocence had been lost forever. Maya grew up to become a counselor who helped other victims of alien conditioning. She was still scarred by her experiences, but she channeled that pain into helping others heal. The cheerful little girl was gone, but in her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and more determined to prevent such horrors from happening again. The human colonies on the rim rebuilt and expanded, but now they were protected by orbital defense platforms and rapid response fleets. Children still played in the gardens and dreamed of exploring the stars, but their parents watched the skies with eyes that had learned to see danger. Earth itself became the unofficial capital of galactic politics. When disputes arose between species, they brought their problems to human mediators, not because humans were neutral, but because everyone knew the consequences of making humanity angry. The old archives beneath the assembly building were no longer sealed. Humanity had decided that forgetting its capacity for war was a luxury it could no longer afford. Military academies reopened for the first time in 3 millennia. Young humans learned to fight with weapons and words, preparing for threats that might come from beyond the stars. But the most important change was in how humanity saw itself. For 3,000 years, they had believed that peace was always possible, that gentleness was always strength, that violence was never the answer. The war with the Zephyrians had taught them a harder truth. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it. 5 years after the war ended, Marcus Chen stood in the memorial garden on New Eden, reading the names carved into black stone. They were the names of human children who had died in Zephyrian camps. young lives lost to alien cruelty. Maya stood beside him, now a young woman with her father's determination in her eyes. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. Marcus thought about the question carefully. The war had saved 50,000 children, but it had also cost thousands of lives. The galaxy was more peaceful now, but it was peaceful because other species feared human retribution. Humanity had saved its children by becoming something their ancestors would have recognized, but their recent past would have rejected. "I think we did what we had to do," he said finally. "I think we became what we needed to be." Above them, the stars shone in patterns that now included human ships patrolling the boundaries of safe space. The galaxy had learned its lesson about taking children from their families. Humanity had learned its lesson about the price of peace. In the end, both species and civilizations had been changed by the war. The question now was what kind of future they would build together. One where strength protected the innocent, where peace was earned rather than assumed, and where the laughter of children was defended by parents who remembered how to fight. The age of human peace was over. The age of human protection had begun.